So we're here with John Osthoff, and John, tell us about the guitar you've got.
Right here, this model is my Grand Parlor model, which is a newer model for me. A couple years ago, I reintroduced a few different models, including my FS model, the Grand Parlor, and an SJ model. And they have a little rounder curve to them, a little more modernistic approach, taking a slight deviation from the traditional guitars that I used to build, but I still currently build kind of under my custom series. Mm-hmm. So this one is a cedar top with a Wingate back and sides, 12 fret body connection.
And so as a builder, you kind of have to constantly evolve, right? You're constantly trying to accommodate what your clientele is looking for, or what's changing in the industry. I know you've also done some internal changes. You want to talk a little bit about just?
Sure, yeah, and that I think that's really important. What you said is that we do continue to evolve. I don't just sit and say, okay, everything's good. There was, when I did introduce these models, there was some significant changes that all occurred at once. But even at that, I continue to evolve and learn from what's happening in those areas and try to get the combination of the whole to get to that particular tone. The main things that have changed in here, or that have kind of evolved, is I do have a standard X brace, but it's actually a double X, so it's a symmetrical top in here in the bracing, and there's a radial bracing pattern on the inside on the back, so the back is a little more active in tone production. Also in here, I'm using this composite bridge patch. This is the inner core of my bridge patch, which also gets another laminate over the top, and the bottom laminate is actually the top of the guitar. So lightened up in the bridge patch itself, yet still have the rigidity that's in there. So it's a little more responsive in there. In addition, I've taken the saddle and put a little back tilt in the saddle, widen that up a teeny bit, so there's a 200 thousandths width in here that gives me room for intonation adjustments. But if you notice, this one also goes straight, which is a little unusual. I mean, that's great if you want to make it lefty. You can just really quickly change the saddle. But also up in this area, the nut is compensated, so there's a little bit better intonation all the way up and down the neck.
Cool.
So, and then also there's a titanium truss rod in there that I make in the shop.
And with the saddle slanting back, that's kind of neat too, is if you have to lower the saddle, you kind of get a little bit of auto compensation.
Right, exactly.
The intonation stays good. Awesome.
Yeah, and there's also my truss rod cover up in here, which is probably not visible, which is the idea. I call it my stealth truss rod cover. You actually have to access it from the back to lift that out. I mean, it's not something we have to get to every day.
Right.
But that's
cool.
Yeah, I like that little idea of just kind of, it's still there. And I liked getting it from this end, so you don't have to remove the strings and if you need to make an adjustment. I didn't like to have to take the strings out.
As a guitar shop owner, I thank you.
Okay.
We adjust a lot of guitars, and it's some of the places the truss rods are accessible. It makes no sense.
My early guitars, you had to get in there and kind of like stand on your back foot to actually get the wrench in there. And that was definitely something I wanted to do, and then I didn't really like those big truss rod covers and on there. So that kind of evolved out of that.
Very cool.
And then the dart in the back kind of also gives a little reinforcement. So a nod tradition, but once again, trying to go toward that modernistic style with things like this and the radial brace patterns, etc.
What made you first ever want to build a guitar?
I always answer that with boring English class. And nothing against English majors, but I would sit in English class and I would be doodling guitars. They were always these crazy, like BC Rich style rock guitars that they were going to be. So I've been messing with guitars since, childhood. Didn't really have the place to do something until much later. So it's been about 15 years since I've been professionally building, but goofing around with this stuff forever.
And why acoustic guitar?
I think it's always been a love of mine. I mean, I really love the whole rock scene thing, but the acoustic guitar is such a combination of everything, and the intimacy of the instrument, the overtones, and the quality of the tone that you can get out of it, and you're not really just doing that through an electron, I guess.
Right.
And I've always been interested in building things, and I do mess around with electronics and stuff like that. I do build an amp occasionally, but there's nothing like this.
Yeah.
Just
So
nothing
personal.
like it. Yeah.
And then one last question, and off the topic of guitar actually, but tell our listeners what do you like to do that's not around guitar? Do you have any hobbies or any things you'd like to do with your time?
Well, when you say that, it's like, what do I do for fun? And I build stuff. I just love building stuff. And I mentioned a little bit about building guitar amps. I love researching the idea of doing these things. And I think in today's world, we can quickly get to this level of putting something together, but getting to that next level, whether it be guitar making, photography. Photography is something I enjoy too. I think we can get there very quickly through what we have for a lot of different things out there, a lot of different tools, the internet and YouTube and things like that. So, you need to change the brakes on your car, look it up on YouTube, right? To become very good at something, I don't think it's really that difficult. To become extra good at it is hugely difficult. So to get to, let's say, that 80% point in making a guitar is probably not all that hard. To get to 82 is a lot harder. To get to 83 is a lot harder. And so, getting back to what I like to do, I like messing around at my house. I like building things.
Yeah.
I really do. Obviously social things and all that other stuff that goes along with any of that, but
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, we're glad you like to mess around and build stuff with wood and make guitars for us.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And I like working with you guys. It's been great. Dream Guitars has been one of those things. I remember meeting you guys at the first Newport show. What was that, 2005 or whatever it was? And seeing you guys there and knowing what you guys were up to back then and showing the community what you guys are up to. And it's great for us as builders. So thank you for that.
No, we appreciate you. Thanks for your art.
All right.
All right, John. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for having me.